Hi, Shay Baker here. Today we're going to talk about a Carolina rig. So Carolina rig is one of the age-old baits. I mean, this is a setup that all our grandpas use. It's been around for a long time, but it's still very effective. And it's actually one that not a lot of people fish with anymore with all the new age stuff like Ned rigs and drop shots. But a Carolina rig is super easy to rig. You just take your main line, so the line coming off your rod and reel. You're going to take a weight. It's usually a pretty heavy one because you're going to fish this technique in typically more than 10 feet of water. Down to 25, pretty much. You can fish it a little deeper, a little shallower, but that's kind of the range that you really want to target. So you slide your line through your weight, pull it up onto your line. You want to use the pointed end first, that way, go through the pointed end first, that way it's more weedless. You can use a bullet weight or an egg weight. A lot of people use egg weights and use lead, where if you do break this off, it doesn't cost you a lot of money. Then you take your bead, and these beads, you can put one or two on. The beads are meant to protect your knot that you're about to tie from the weight, where it's not banging up on it, messing up your knot, risking breaking off. But it also creates a little bit of rattle against that weight as it's struggle on the bottom, helps the fish kind of find it. Then you take a swivel, and you're going to tie your main line to one end of the swivel using a Palomar knot or a trilene knot. I prefer a trilene knot, just a knot I've used a long time, works really well. So now once you've tied your swivel on to your main line, cut the excess off there, and now you're going to tie. Now once you've tied your swivel to your main line, you're going to take another section of line and you're going to create a leader. Typically with a Carolina rig, you're going to want about 2 to 4 feet of leader line. So that leader will be the space between your weight, bead, and swivel and your bait. You can go with a shorter leader if you're using a lightweight fishing a Carolina rig really shallow, and you can actually go with a longer leader at times, but it gets kind of hard to cast. So 2 to 4 feet is kind of the sweet spot. Now you're going to take a leader line. You can use either monofilament or fluorocarbon for your leader line. Monofilament does float, so that's kind of a nice added benefit to help your bait kind of stay up off the bottom and wash around a little better. But fluorocarbon works really well too. So you're going to tie again your leader line, however long you've chosen, to the bottom of your swivel, the end opposite of where you tied your main line. It's got 2 rings, so just tie on the other end. And once you've tied one end of your leader line to your swivel, you'll take your hook and you'll tie it to the other end. Now you can use several different styles of hook: straight shank, worm hook, EWG. I like an EWG a lot on the Carolina rig. It does a good job, carries a lot of different soft plastics really well. If you're using a thicker bait like a grub, EWG works really well because it has more space in the gap for the hook to come out and stick into the fish without the bait bunching up in a shallow gap hook like a worm hook would be. Again, using a trilene knot or Palomar knot or whatever you prefer, tie your hook onto your leader line. And now, I'm just using my teeth to tighten it, not to cut it. Don't do that, don't recommend that. I actually chipped a tooth doing that. Just a little sidebar tip for you. So we're gonna take the hook and we're gonna go through the tip of the nose of the bait. We're gonna go through about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch, enough room for the soft plastic that you're gonna use here to go over the hook and the knot. That'll protect the knot and also creates a nice clean look. So you go through the tip of the soft plastic's nose, go about a 1/2, 3/4 of an inch, and then pop out the underside of the bait. Slide that portion of the bait up onto the knot and the eye. Now you're gonna take your bait, you're gonna kind of push a little bit of a bend in its back. You wanna do this to where once your finished product of the bait rigged is really, really straight. So in order to do that, if you just kind of went through wherever the hook point is, it'll be a super tight bait. And if you push too far, it'll be a bunched up, bent back. So it kind of takes a little bit of practice, but you want to get it to where when you go through the bottom of the bait, your bait lays really straight. And then you're gonna take the tip of the point and just skin hook it right up under the edge of the bait. And that way, this is our super weedless presentation. And so now you have a Carolina rig. You have your weight, your bead, and your swivel from your main line. And then see the weight in the bead stops at the swivel, and then dragging along behind, you have your soft plastic. Now this weight's gonna stir up a little silt on the bottom, and then the fish are gonna see that. It works really well in clear water. Fish are gonna see it, and they're gonna come over there to investigate, and then right along in that mud trail, here comes your soft plastic lure. So that's essentially a Carolina rig. It takes really big lob casts to get this bait out there. Slow drags, it's a really subtle deal. Not a lot of jerking, not a lot of action. And whenever you get a bite, you want to reel down because there's usually a good bit of line out, and you want to go ahead and lean into them pretty good on the hook set. That's Carolina rig.